idea generation is really a way to collect, implement, and share ideas within the organization. Really is meant to be more team-based, so it's not system or the region saying here are a bunch of ideas, but we really want the frontline staff to be able to kind of generate those ideas for making improvement as well. It should foster an environment for empowering our frontline teams, and that's a new concept. Historically, I think for most ministries, that's not really something we fostered as leaders and as an organization. So this is going to be a new concept that I think is going to take some time to get some traction. So there's different ways we collect idea generation that we've seen thus far. We have this wonderful little idea tree with Post-it notes on it. We have these idea cards as well, and I don't know if anyone's seen any other ideas, but to note for this too, this is going to be changing a little bit sometime in 2020. We don't have all the specifics yet on it, but and Tiffany alluded to it a little bit. There's going to be a standard idea generation card. I would assume it'll kind of follow this one that's already been created, but it might look a little different. And then there'll also be a way to track those electronically. And idea generation, I can tell you, is going to be a priority focus for the organization, kind of leading in when this launches, and probably even 2021. There's some talks of it becoming a KPI. So idea generation and really empowering all of the employees across the organization to solicit ideas is going to be a major focus for the organization. Because you can imagine the power by numbers that if each of us came up with a couple ideas, multiply that by 40,000 employees, just in a year's time, we've now generated 80,000 ideas. Yes, right? 80,000 ideas. I mean, that math is correct. It's still too early to do math. So just imagine the power of generating those ideas. Now, granted, they might not all work, but we do need to be generating those ideas to make improvements.
Scott, who's vetting the ideas?
Who's vetting them? So ultimately the team would be vetting them by trying to implement that to make the change, to move the dial. And these ideas are meant to tie back to whatever KPI that you're focusing on.
Okay,
so that's really the kind of the focus for the idea generation is how do these ideas tie with what we're trying to improve? Now again, maybe some of them are maybe in left field that don't necessarily tie to what we're looking to improve, and that could certainly help the organization as a whole. So again, those details are still being worked out, so I'm kind of speaking to what I know thus far, but until that rolls out, people are still using kind of their own way of generating those ideas, whether it's with Post-it notes, nice visual idea trees that they might have, but most people I would say are using the kind of standard idea slip that we rolled out with the performance board.
Is there a mechanism to coordinate across teams or departments? I know in some cases there will be things that are dependent, kind of to Aaron's point about goals earlier, on multiple groups or has an IT component or something. Is there a formal mechanism to coordinate that type of thing? Is the intent that it's more organic?
I would say to start it's probably going to be meant to be a little more organic.
Okay.
I could see us maybe maturing down the road. But I think that's where those ideas come. If there's some dependency on another group, that's where then you got to engage, say, hey, we have this idea, it might really help us, but we have this piece that we really need help from IT, and what's the possibility? So I think it's more organic and just that kind of conversation we're going to have where we need that support.
And so if that's the case, for those of us that are more in a support role, we tend to work with a lot of people, so we know who the people are to talk to about that type of stuff. Is there a way for someone who's maybe more on the front line and doesn't know who the right players are to figure that out? Is it just a conversation with their manager? Is there something else that we are looking at?
I think leveraging their CI resource would be their manager, certainly. I think CI, like the project managers and the ops team have kind of a wide range of who we know and different support areas that we can certainly point them in the right direction if we don't know. Tiffany?
I want to say that we have to keep in mind that the ideas and the goals that are generated by these teams have to be actionable by those teams. That's where you're gonna get the most value in accomplishing those goals. So if your goal isn't actionable by you and your team, it's probably not the type of goal that we're looking for on as far as the performance boards and the operating model. That's separate though than the idea generation. I just wanna make sure that there was that distinction there. If that makes sense. So the stuff that you're working towards on a daily basis
Yep.
needs to be a SMART goal, so it needs to be actionable by you and your team. So you guys can make, or the frontline staff can make the biggest impact that they can make, which is different than just generating ideas and formulating best practice and stuff like that.
But some of your ideas could support
Yes.
what you're working on.
And then we do have the step back reviews and the go and see walk, where different levels of leadership will look at the boards, and if they're seeing common barriers between boards, then that's where the CI team and the different levels of leadership can step in and help and say, you know what, I saw a board that was working on this exact same thing. I'm gonna reach out to this person to see what all they utilized to help accomplish this goal. Or it looks like you've done, 4 different action plans for the same barrier. How can I help? Type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. We want to make sure whatever ideas we submit that our leaders are following up with that. First and foremost, our direct one up should be, I know for our ideas on our board, I see Tara and Matt looking at them, and they should be following through on them. Because we could generate all the ideas in the world, but if people aren't helping us with those barriers or even, following up with us on those, this whole concept is just gonna fall to the wayside. So it's gonna take all levels of the organization engaging in this process for it to be successful. And from what it sounds like, the top leadership level is getting really interested in this, and they're gonna be, I think, kind of bought into it. So I think that support's gonna be there, but now it's just, again, getting those ideas generated and really making sure they're focused. We can come up with, I would love to have skylights in this building or knock some windows in the back, but, that's kind of not the intent. Those are ideas, right? But it's really ideas meant to, where we really can see some change. Not that we can't have some crazy idea out there, because as one of our pillars with breakthrough innovation, we don't want to pigeonhole people to say, don't think outside the box. But we also want it to be, somewhat realistic, knowing what boundaries we might have to be playing within. But so it's going to be kind of that balance. And so look for more later this year. I don't know, Tracy, if you want to add anything that maybe that I don't know around idea generation that's coming as a kind of a standard later this year.
I don't know a ton more. I think you've spoken to it very well. It is kind of a monitor measure, or it will be a monitor measure for 2020, but as far as exactly how are we going to track the number, where are they going to be housed, that's all still being discussed. We looked at a couple of different, they have apps and different software that help you manage idea systems. So we were actually looking at some of those last week. So still more to come. I think the point to take away from this class is to understand how just important that is. Again, for teams, and I appreciate what Tiffany said, we really want teams to be thinking through how can I help improve, or what ideas do I have to help improve my daily work or my team's daily work. We don't want people to get so caught up in, well, the system KPI is X. Any of the goals that you all have within your department should be driving those system goals anyway. So, these don't have to be completely breakthrough ideas. It could be, I have an idea that we could move the printer from all the way down the hall to over here by our desks, and it's gonna save us 85 steps, and, we're gonna not have to waste as much time, something like that. So in other words, it can just be very small ideas, but as long as they're an improvement, they improve your work or your team's work, that sort of a thing. That's what we're looking for. So even though we don't necessarily have a way to track them now, it doesn't mean don't start. Start looking around, talking with your team members about, how can we improve? Like Scott said, start collecting those on your performance board, talk through them, make sure, the leaders are always going to want to make sure and close that loop. So even if we don't implement something, let's have a conversation around why perhaps we can't. If it takes some sort of, capital or something, sometimes those aren't doable at that time, but, again, there should at least be a conversation so people don't feel like they're putting their ideas up there and then nobody's even considering them, so.
Do you have that, like, I haven't seen that template or that form before, is
This
that
one?
something that's shared?
Yeah,
That
we
we
can
can
share it with you.
access?
Certainly. Yep. It's just a little Word document, and there's like 4 of them on there, you print it, cut it,
Okay.
into little squares.
I think some of the other questions that are coming with this training today too, the other aspects of the operating model, like leadership cadence and shared learning, will tie into what we're talking about now too. So, like leadership cadence that talks about how the leaders are being present in the work area. And if we had that knowledge, I think, some of those questions would already be answered as far as how do you ask for help? How do you identify areas where you need further support type of thing.
All right, so we are gonna do another activity, and we do this in groups of 3, so this time we actually will have you count off. So what we'd like you to do, this is gonna be kind of a 3-part activity, and I'm gonna go through the first 2, and then Justin will come back, and part of when he's talking, it'll kind of bring part 3 and wrap it all together. So we're gonna have each team will have 5 minutes per tree, so there's 3 trees. You can see we've got patient satisfaction, decreasing workplace violence, and employee engagement. So what we want you to do is to identify ideas or actions on their department or unit that can contribute to those KPIs. So in this case, you're gonna be a team of different roles, so maybe you can come at each of these from kind of your perspective within your current role. Each idea should be documented on a Post-it with your black markers, so if each of you can just bring those, so if you have an idea, you can jot it down, and then someone else can jot it down on those. And then the Post-its will be put right on the trees. So you're gonna have a chance to go to each different one to share your ideas. So that's gonna be part 1. Eventually you'll get back to the one that you started, and then we'll have you kind of do a different activity at kind of the one you started at. So basically you're coming up with ideas on how we can increase patient satisfaction, how we can decrease workplace violence, and then how we can increase employee engagement. So can someone maybe give a definition of workplace violence? Because my head maybe kind of goes in multiple directions. I want to just make sure everyone has an understanding. Justin or Tracy.
Yeah, I would say broadly defined workplace violence is any act of aggression that occurs in the workplace, and that includes verbal. So I would say anytime as a staff member at really any level you felt that a patient or a patient's family was verbally or physically aggressive towards you, that would count as an incident of workplace violence.
Any inappropriate, anything at all, whether it's sexual, violent,
Yep.
raising their voice at you,
Yes.
that is all included in workplace violence.
So how can we decrease that? I just thought that would be helpful to have some context there. Melissa?
Are we role-playing as a particular staff or ourselves?
Just
Like as a
think in
project
general, how
manager?
can we decrease workplace violence?
You can role play if you want to, though.
It's similar to the catch-all exercise where you just envision your goal of a 33%. Envision your goal
Okay,
now
so
of maybe more.
I would approach it very differently if I'm pretending to be a nurse on a unit versus myself as a project manager.
I mean, you can primarily, most of us are at the WRO, but if you want to kind of think from that lens of more of the patient care, certainly do that.
Yeah,
All right, so we're going to count up by 3s.
1,
2, 3. 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
2, 3. All right, so the 1s you can go to employee engagement, 2s patient satisfaction, and 3 can go to decreased workplace violence. So we'll give you about 5 minutes per tree, and we'll have you rotate, and we'll eventually get you back to where you started, and then we'll do part 2. All right, your 5-minute timer started for round 1. 2.
Right now it's
Yeah, exactly.
would say, sort of more, better way to explain.
Thanks, Tracy.
Maybe like, consistent goals.
Yeah.
I would actually answer your ideas, like, I feel like the boards, I see a ton of ideas, and I turn around the dashboard, and reply from them, and there's nothing. So how about engaging in meetings or follow up, or there you go, follow up. I got it. You got it. Aaron made it a little bit, but, it's the communication or everything. I don't know, I think communication on like other department or system initiatives, like it's just like. Better educational. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Something that our security button we have.
I know, it's like, choose another one, it's fine.
Yes, I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, it's a paper, right?
There are, yeah.
Like there's some roles specifically in the
Because I noticed yours
potentially then other
posts.
like if you're in
I've forgotten about
course, like a reception person, like where there's
That's so funny that I'm gonna have to make them